Hello and welcome back to the Simulated 2024 F1 World Championship. This is round number 15 of 24 from Zandvoort in the Netherlands. After what feels like an eternity, the F1 season is back, and kicking us off for the second part of the season is a conclusion of the European leg of the championship, as we head to the home country of a certain Max Verstappen, before heading to the home country of a certain Scarlet team. Here's how the drivers' standings shape up after last time out at Belgium. The battle for the top spot has truly heated up, with the top 5 drivers being separated by less than a race win's worth of points. Verstappen remains on top, however, only 7 points ahead of Lando Norris. Tsunoda, the championship leader for so long, is very much keeping himself in contention, only 6 points further back, with Hamilton trailing behind Tsunoda by only 3 points, and Leclerc only being a further 2 points behind his future teammate. Further back, Alonso is in P6, with Gasly having a solid time in 7th. Piastri, Sainz and Perez round out the top 10. The Constructors' battle is similarly competitive, with Red Bull leading the pack by only 4 points from McLaren, with Ferrari holding up P3, 12 points behind. RB hold on to P4, only 9 points ahead of a fast resurging Mercedes. Aston Martin are slipping back in P6, but still have some distance between themselves and Sauber in P7. Alpine are only 2 points behind them in P8, Williams take up the P9 spot, and Haas are still sitting in the back, but are slowly bringing themselves into play. Compared to the actual standings, Verstappen's lead over Norris is considerably larger, with the two separated by 78 points. Leclerc remains in P3, with Piastri jumping Leclerc's teammate Sainz into P4. Hamilton is bringing himself into play for the battle for P2 after inheriting the win at Spa, with Perez still underperforming down in P7. Russell remains in P8 after his disqualification, and the two Astons of Alonso and Stroll continue to round out the top 10. As for the Constructors, Red Bull's gap at the top to McLaren continues to shrink down with every passing race, with Ferrari also keeping themselves in the hunt for the Constructors' title. Mercedes are slowly bringing themselves into play too, now being a long way ahead of Aston Martin, who remain in P5. RB and Haas are still relatively close fighting for P6, and Alpine puts some daylight between themselves and Williams in P8. Sauber remain in last, still looking to get a point. Now it's time to find out who will be racing as for the Dutch Grand Prix. Gasly has been removed from the wheel, leaving only 6 drivers waiting to be selected. Without further ado, let's spin the wheel and find out who we shall be driving as around Zandvoort. And we have been given Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Can we perform the smoothest of operations around Verstappen's backyard? Or will the Dutch army power their home hero to a dominant display? It's time for the Dutch Grand Prix.
With partisan support that we rarely see anywhere else on the calendar, there is an incredible atmosphere at Zandvoort. We're setting the grid for the Dutch Grand Prix in qualifying.
Here we are then at Zandvoort, Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. First race back from the summer break, which means I definitely need to get used to driving on this game again, because I haven't played it since the last race, so that was like a month ago. Whoopsie daisy, but it doesn't take me too long to get back into the swing of things. I was a bit shaky coming out the last corner there, but across the line for the end of Q1, we end up in P2, not in P1, P2. No prize of guessing who's in P1, but nonetheless, we lost from Q1. Zhou Guanyu, Sergio Perez, not really much of a surprise anymore, Kevin Magnussen, Lance Stroll, and then Esteban Ocon in the Alpine is last. Although I will mention that the whole grid was separated by less than 6/10 of a second. So this is definitely a very close qualifying indeed. Very fine margins determining whether you live to fight for another day or get knocked out of qualifying. But nonetheless, we're in Q2 now, passing over the line again, and we do make it through to Q3 this time in P1. We did a very good time. That was only 44 thousandths ahead of Verstappen, but nonetheless we lost from Q2. Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes is out, a bit of a shock there, along with Oscar Piastri in the McLaren also out in Q2. Daniel Ricciardo also out, and then Logan Sargent in the Williams is P15. A second down from our time, not very good for him there. But yeah, big shocks there, definitely Hamilton and Piastri. I guess Alonso as well going out in Q2. Alonso, Hamilton and Piastri all going out in Q2. which means the likes of Albon and Hulkenberg are indeed in Q3 as we move on to our final qualifying lap now. Going through the Tarzan corner, I believe this is called. Either that's the first corner, I can't remember these corners. But nonetheless, heading through Sector 1. And we set the fastest sector time through Sector 1. Very good start so far. Probably could have carried a bit more speed going for that right-hander. But nonetheless, continuing on our way through Sector 2. And we do end up losing the rear here, going through the right-hander, which is definitely going to cost us some time. And go for the left-hander, we hit the curb, which causes our car to get unsettled once again. So not a very good Sector 2 here for us. Not very good there. We're only a 10th ahead of Norris this time in 6th place. And we also make another mistake going into the quick right and left-hander here. So we're definitely losing a lot of time in the latter stages of this lap. Don't think this is going to be a pole lap, but nonetheless, you only get one opportunity. So heading through the final corner now to the line. Where are we going to start the Dutch Grand Prix? We are going to be in P8. Ooh. The second and third sector is definitely costing us a lot of time there. Not very good for us going into this track where it's pretty hard to overtake. Nonetheless, Max Verstappen is on pole for his home race. A whole 3 attempts ahead of George Russell in P2. Our teammate Charles Leclerc in P3. Yuki Tsunoda having a good decent qualifying in 4th. Same with Valtteri Bottas in his kick salvo, who ends up in P5. Norris in P6. Alexander Albon in P7. Ourselves, Carlos Sainz in 8th. Pierre Gasly in 9th. And Nico Hulkenberg rounds at the top 10 for Haas. And that's qualifying done and dusted. The grid has been set, so now it's time for the Dutch Grand Prix.
Zandvoort comes equipped with its trademark banked corners. Truly unique challenge for the drivers. It also comes with a sea of orange t-shirts. Welcome to the Dutch Grand Prix. A lap of this short 2.6 mile Zandvoort circuit then features 14 corners, 10 to the right and 4 to the left, with a 678 metre main straight into turn 1, aka Tarzan corner, which with DRS open will be the best overtaking opportunity on the track. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday and he'll start from pole position. And starting next to them is George Russell. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Tsunoda, Bottas, Norris, Albon, Sainz, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Fernando Alonso, Hamilton, Oscar Piastri, Ricciardo, Sargent, Joe, Perez, Magnussen, Stroll, and Esteban Ocon lines up at the back of the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. Welcome to the commentary box overlooking the circuit. I'm Alex Jakes, and joining us for the race today is Naomi Schiff. Now, those final hours before a race, did you have a routine?
Well, every driver certainly has their own way of preparing themselves before a race, but I can tell you that pre-race rituals are a real thing. When I was in go-karting, I used to touch every wheel in a specific sequence before I got into the kart. And then I stepped up to cars and had a specific set of fireproof base layers just for race day. So watch the drivers when they're on the grid. Some may be sitting on the floor and isolating, others may be up to other things that they do. But these little things really help their minds get ready for the race.
Thanks Alex Jakes for telling me that the Tarzan corner is turn 1. Also, them still talking about pre-race rituals again. I'm pretty sure they patched that, but from where I'm standing, it looks like they haven't. Nonetheless, we're on the grid here at Zandvoort for the Dutch Grand Prix, starting from P8. We're usually used to starting from pole, but now we got some work to do today to guarantee ourselves a good result. Hopefully we can. I adjust the fuel settings. I keep the tyre strategy the same because I feel like that's okay. It's a 2-stopper compared to a 3-stopper. We'll see what everyone does. But we do have a mix of tyres. Most people going on the softs. We only have 7 drivers going on the mediums, including ourselves. The lowest starting medium runner is Alonso in P11. Gasly also starting on mediums along with Norris, Bottas, Leclerc, and the pole sitter Max Verstappen. So hopefully we've got some different strategies coming into play. And hopefully we can make our strategy work and get some overtaking done on the track. Although this track is pretty difficult to overtake. But there are still opportunities, mainly down into turn 1. Hopefully we can make a few moves there throughout the race. Remember, it's 72 laps of the Dutch Grand Prix. I think it's like the second most amount of laps in a race this year. Second to Monaco. I know a few tracks have like 71 and 70 laps, but I don't remember any other tracks having 72. So I think it is like the second most out of laps for a race. Which makes sense because the track is pretty short. 1 minute 10, 1 minute 11 lap times. I'm sure we'll see some of those today as we go onto the grid now with 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go. And Norris makes a poor start, very realistic to real life there. Norris makes a very poor start and we move past him going into turn 1. We make the move before turn 1, we move up to P6. We're side by side with Albon, however, and Albon gets a better run out of the turn 1, so we're back down to P7. We still make up a spot, though, with Lando now down in P9 from P6 on the grid. Very poor start for him. As I said, quite realistic for this year. But, yeah, we slot ourselves into P7 behind Albon. Albon getting a decent start as well. So, yeah, pretty much line astern at the front apart from Lando Norris down in P9. Everyone, but, well, a few people behind them gaining space, gaining spots, mainly Albon, myself, and Hulkenberg. As we move through Sector 2 now. Not much happening. Perez actually losing a few spots. He's down in 19th position. So, going from bad to worse there for the Red Bull driver. As we move on to Sector 3 now. Very tricky couple of corners here. As we move on to the last couple of corners, including the banked right-hander to finish the lap. Verstappen still leading from Russell, Leclerc still in P3, Bottas up to P4 I think, actually jumping Tsunoda I just realised, so Bottas and Tsunoda are swap spots, Bottas up to P4, Tsunoda to P5, as we move on to the end of lap 2 now, moving on to lap 3, the DRS has been activated and Russell, making use of that DRS, goes for removal, Max Verstappen trying to go around the outside of turn 1, side by side going through the corner, Verstappen not giving out the spot, but Russell should have more traction because he has the racing line. And we're still side by side going for the next corner, but Russell just keeping the speed and actually taking the lead of the Dutch Grand Prix away from Max Verstappen. I'm sure the home crowd will not be too impressed with that, but racing is racing. As we move on to lap 4 now, we're right behind Albon again, and all of us seem to be kind of training themselves here. There's a bit of a train from first down, well, first from the entire order, but we get a good run on Albon going out of the banked left-hander. And we go side by side going through the long sweeping right hand and we make the move stick. We're up to P6 now, getting ahead of the Williams driver. Very good stuff from us. We do need to make more overtakes though before the front runners eventually break from the train. As we see now at the end of lap 4 going on to lap 5, Verstappen now getting a run on Russell and using the DRS. Verstappen gets the move done before even making it to the corner, but Russell trying to stay in there. But Verstappen has the racing line and gets more traction coming out the corner and retakes the lead away from the Mercedes driver. So Verstappen back in the lead of his home race. I'm sure the crowd will be very excited to see that overtake. As we move on to lap 7 now, Leclerc now overtaking Russell. Russell seeming to be falling back here. Remember, Russell is on the softs, but Russell is on the outside, which should give him more traction out the corner. But Leclerc on the inside, trying to stay with him, doesn't make the move stick, but then being side by side does leave us a bit out of sorts as we try to overtake Tsunoda now for P5. I hit my desk, I'm sorry about that, but we're side by side going through the fast sequence of corners, still side by side going through those corners, and we're still side by side going for the right hander. I stick on the outside, Tsunoda on the inside, going through the corner, and there we go. Tsunoda backs out and we move it to P5 in this race. Next target is Valtteri Bottas in P4. And we move on to lap 7 now, and we're actually right behind Bottas here, who is right behind Leclerc, right behind Russell. Leclerc trying to look at Russell. Russell actually making a mistake, locking up, going into the quick right-hander. We actually make contact with Valtteri Bottas. That kind of caught us out there. No damage done, thankfully, and we do get the move done on Valtteri Bottas. Bottas now down to P5. We're up to P4. Russell now down to P3 after making the mistake there. Leclerc simply driving on by. And now we've got 2 Ferraris nearly in the podium. And it could be 2 Ferraris on the podium spots right now as we hound the back of Russell, trying to do the switchback, going into the right and then left. And we go down the inside, a bit of contact, wheel banging there, but fair is fair. And we're up to P3 now. Both Ferraris on the podium. But we're not done yet as we move on to lap 11 now, the end of lap 11 onto lap 12. We make a run of our teammate with the DRS going into the first corner, pulling down to the inside. Hard on the brakes, but I do kind of overshoot the turn there, and Leclerc now trying to make his way back through. Side by side going into turn 3, I believe, but we do have the outside line and Leclerc backs off now, and we're up to P2. So we've gone from P8 to P2 within 12 laps. That is very impressive running for us. We've only got Verstappen in front of us now, as we see Bottas now overtaking his replacement at Mercedes, Russell. Bottas now up to P4 in the kick Sauber. Bottas doing very well in the last few races, let's be honest, in that Sauber. Someone who's not having a good time is Sergio Perez, and his misery continues as his engine goes bang on lap 13. We have our first retirement of the race, Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. Very, very poor weekend. Definitely one to forget for the Mexican driver. He is out of the Dutch Grand Prix here in Zandvoort. Very sad for him, as we see Bottas now on lap 20, who makes a mistake going into turn 1. We were singing his praises earlier, but now he's made a mistake that's cost him dearly as he tumbles down the order. He's gone from P4 to P16. So unfortunate there for Bottas, but one tiny mistake going into turn 1 has cost him dearly. As we move on to lap 21 now, and I decide, even though we are closing up to Verstappen, we're about 2.1 seconds behind, I decide to do the undercut going on to lap 21 into lap 22 here. So I pull into the pits for another set of medium tyres, a couple of laps before our scheduled pit stop window. But we put on a new set of mediums, 2.4, very good stop there from the Ferrari mechanics. And along our way we go as we head out of the pit lane. We're down to P18, Piastri being the only one who's pitted so far other than us now. We move down to P18, but we are on a fresh set of mediums and we do have some clear road ahead of us. So hopefully we can use the fresher tyres to our advantage and move up to P1. As we see Verstappen pitting in at end of lap 25, same with Leclerc now. So we've had 3 to 4 laps worth of fresher tyres. Hopefully we'll close down that 2.1 gap before our pit stop and actually take the lead of this race. As Verstappen now comes out of the pits, where are we on track? We just come past there, so the undercut has worked out for us. And now we are in the lead of the Dutch Grand Prix. Very good stuff there. Very good call to take the initiative to get the undercut done. And now we're up to P1. But remember, Verstappen now has like 4 lap fresher tyres than us, so he could overtake us in the next section of this race. As we'll see Tsunoda now going around the outside of George Russell going into turn 1. Tsunoda going around the outside and making the move stick. Tsunoda up to P5 now. Russell not having a good time after taking the lead early on in this race. He is starting to slip back, which is very unfortunate for him. Hopefully he can bounce back further along. As we move on to lap 36 now, halfway through the race, and Verstappen has caught up to us. Moving on to lap 37, I told you that the fresher tyres for Verstappen will have his part to play. He hits the outside of the corner. I tried to brake a little bit later on the inside, but Verstappen keeping his nose in it. We're side by side going through turn 2 now and going into turn 3. I brake a little bit later going into turn 3, which gives me the edge, and I stay ahead of Verstappen for now. But that does define the next 2 laps really, as Verstappen tries to overtake, but we keep defending. As we move on to the second and last set of pit stops, Verstappen trying to get a slipstream down there going into the pit lane, but he's not following us in. We're going on to lap 50 now, making our last pit stop now, going on to the soft tyres for the rest of the race. Can the soft tyres last 72 laps? I'm sure they can. The mediums were actually very resilient for this first and second stint, so hopefully in the last stint the soft tyres pull their weight and gets to the end of the race. But once again, we will be on fresher tyres. We get out just ahead of Lando Norris in P3, which gives us a lot of clear air to pump in some very good lap times. So with the soft tyres, we should gain a good advantage going into the last section of the race. As we see Hamilton now on lap 50, his engine's also gone up in smoke. We have our second retirement of the Dutch Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes pulls over to the side of the road and is out of this race. Very unfortunate for him. He didn't have a very good qualifying, but he was doing alright in the race. Got himself back into the points, but unfortunately he's going to walk away with 0 points today. Which is very unfortunate considering he is definitely in the hunt for the driver's title. As we see Bottas now Making a move on Ocon, who made a mistake going into the right-hander there. We saw Russell do that earlier in this race, and now Ocon's done the same. Bottas up to P12. Could have been a lot more if he hadn't made that mistake in turn 1 earlier in the race, but nonetheless, he's trying to limit the damage that has done. As we see Russell and Tsunoda still battling away for P4, actually. Tsunoda trying to make a move on the inside into turn 1 on lap 67. But Russell, with the racing line, gets a lot of traction, come out of the corner, and maintains the position. That fight has definitely gone on for the majority of the race, and it's very exciting to see them two battling it out. As we move on to the last lap now, we did maintain our advantage over Verstappen. The soft tire's not really working for Max here. Definitely working out better for us than it did for Max. As we actually nearly lose the rear end going through the right-hander there. We were pushing to see whether we could do a fastest lap, but that's definitely put a pin on that. So we just decide to just get it home. Bottas actually overtaking Albon there in P11, as you can see on the leaderboard on the left. But nonetheless, Verstappen just over 4 seconds behind Leclerc, maintaining P3. So it's going to be a double Ferrari podium for the Dutch Grand Prix. And I'm sure the Dutch fans out here would have loved to have seen their home hero take another win here at this Zandvoort track. But this time it's going to be Carlos Sainz who crosses the line to win the Dutch Grand Prix.
Checkered flag.
We did it. Yes! We did it. Yes! Vamos!
A win here for Ferrari. I'm sure they'll take it going into their home race in Monza next time out. But nonetheless, Sainz is the victor.
You knew what was coming today. It was always likely to be a super smooth operation from Carlos Sainz, who takes the win.
It's not every day that we get to see such incredible wheel-to-wheel racing. Next time, they might consider making it easier for themselves, but today, we absolutely loved all the action that we got to see out there.
Ferrari are at it again. An excellent performance at today's Grand Prix, and they're certainly a team that know what they're doing out there.
So there we go, Carlos Sainz taking the first victory of the second part of the season here at Zandvoort. Max Verstappen having to settle for second at his home race. I'm sure the Dutch fans won't be too impressed with that, but nonetheless, they got their boy on the podium, so they won't walk away too disappointed, but I'm sure they expected the win today. But it's a double Ferrari podium as we head to their home race in Monza in a week's time. They very much got the momentum going into the second part of the season here. So there we go, after 72 laps, Carlos Sainz takes the victory. The undercut very much working in our favour. Max Verstappen in P2, Charles Leclerc P3, George Russell eventually ends up ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, taking 4th position. Tsunoda in P5, Magnussen starting from P18, ends up P6 on the road. Very good race for the Dane driver, along with Zhou Guanyu, who finishes 7th after starting 16th. Alonso making his way up to 8th. Lando Norris, a disappointing race for him, down in P9. And Nico Hülkenberg's the last of the points finishers in 10th place. As for the rest of the classified finishers, we've got Valtteri Bottas in 11th, Alexander Albon in 12th. A bit of a disappointing race for the pair of them, considering where they started. Ocon moving his way up to P13, Piastri finishing 14th, being the only person to try the free stop, not working out too well for him. Gasly in P15, Stroll in P16, Logan Sargent in 17th, and Daniel Ricciardo is the last of the classified finishers in 18th. And we had 2 retirements, which were Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez. And there we go, that is the Dutch Grand Prix done and dusted. The next race will be in a week's time. It's the Italian Grand Prix around Monza, Ferrari's home race. Will they make it 2 wins on the trot? We shall see, only time will tell. But I do like Monza. Monza's very fun, very fast. So hopefully you'll tune in for that one, and we'll see whether Ferrari can continue their winning streak, or will Verstappen bounce back, or will we even get another new winner? We've had a lot of new winners in this, we have had a lot of different winners in this season so far. Maybe we'll add to that total in Monza, but nonetheless, 30th of August is when the Italian Grand Prix video will go out, so make sure to tune in for that one. As for the driver standings, after 15 rounds, Max Verstappen extends his lead at the top to 19 points ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, who moves ahead of Lando Norris moving back up to P2. Leclerc also moving ahead, and Leclerc tied on points with Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda having the better results, so he maintains second position. Norris moves down to 4th after a disappointing showing in Zandvoort. Hamilton remains in 5th, despite retiring from the race. Actually, no, he actually goes down to 5th, sorry. He was in 4th before. Carlos Sainz, with his victory here today, moves up to 6th position ahead of his countryman Fernando Alonso, who moves down to 7th with 100 points exactly. Pierre Gasly in P8, Oscar Piastri in P9, and Sergio Perez rounds up the top 10. As for the constructors, Ferrari take the lead of the championship going into Monza. They move ahead of Red Bull and McLaren. Ferrari having a 7-point advantage over Red Bull in the standings. McLaren moving down to P3 after a very disappointing showing here in Zandvoort. RB remain 4th, but Mercedes are closing in, only 7 points behind Red Bull's sister team. Aston Martin moving further back in 6th. Sauber gaining 6 points, still remain in 7th. Alpine remain in 8th with 98 points still. Williams still in 9th with 81 points, but they're going to have to be looking over their shoulder soon because Haas, with a very good showing here at Zandvoort, a double points finisher in fact, still remaining last, but with 9 points on the board today. There are now 20 points behind Williams, so they're very much in the hunt for at least maybe P8, maybe even P7. So hopefully they can get themselves out of last place, and hopefully we'll see a good fight down at the lower end of the constructors table. And there we go, that is the Dutch Grand Prix done and dusted. F1 is back after the summer break, and we've definitely got quite some exciting races. We got Italy, we got Azerbaijan, we got Singapore coming up, and then we got the American and Middle East rounds to finish up the season. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this race, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like, make sure to subscribe. I'm doing a video for every race this year. Got 9 left to do, I believe, so hopefully you'll tune in for those ones as well. And without further ado, I'll leave you all to it. Hopefully, as I said, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll see you all for the next one.